I'm Larry Fedoruk. Welcome to my podcast. This is I Was 8. Stories about growing up in a small town on the prairies. Next week, true confession. But this week, keeping it all in the family. This is Season 2 of I Was 8.
Chapter 10, Metro.
Metro was my grandfather's name, my dad's dad. Apparently, it's a form of Dimitro. Not Dimitri, but Dimitro. Dimetro? You say Dimitro, I say Dimetro. You say tomato, I say tomato. Tomato, Dimitro, Dimetro. Let's call my grandpa Mike. Hey, thank you, yes. My new album is... Yeah, okay, anyway. I don't really say tomato. Dimitro, Metro, his friends called him Mike. I called him Tatu, which actually means dad. The way that worked is all their kids just called them Mama and Tatu, so eventually all the grandkids did too. Tatu, Metro, Mike, and I weren't necessarily that close, but we did get a chance to bond once in a while, not that we thought of it as bonding or that anyone around used the term bonding in reference to connecting with your grandfather. No one said bonding. Actually, we called it cribbage. We played cribbage. It was bonding only in the memory of it. Right around the time I was 8, my dad's parents, Mama and Tatu, sold the farm and moved into our town, about a block away on the same street as we lived. See, back when I was 5, the old days, we lived out in the country where my mom taught school. We lived on a teacherage. That's an acreage, as in an acre of land, with a school and a house for the teacher on it. Teacherage. A portmanteau. Right, Mom? A portmanteau. Well, whatever. Now, it was about a dirt road mile from my mother's homestead where her parents lived and our teacherage. I often walked or ran that mile to visit my grandparents and then walked or ran home again. I was close with those grandparents, not so much with my dad's rough and tumble family. But now, with my dad's parents in town just down the block, this was a much shorter and easier commute. If I could run a mile when I was 5, I could walk a block when I was 8. We could bond. Dad's parents were not the overly nurturing types, let's just say. I guess a different time and a different parenting style. In hindsight, they really helped explain certain aspects of my father. They were kind enough and nice enough, and rarely referred to me by name, by the way, even when I was in the room. They called me Johnny's kid. So much so that when they had to address me directly, they often just called me Johnny, and only sometimes realized their mistake and corrected themselves. I didn't care that much. Whatever they called me, I answered. I knew who they meant. My grandmother kept pictures of all the cousins up in her living room, dozens of them, all of the cousins at various ages, birth, christening, grade 2, so forth. None of me. When I asked, she said it was because we lived down the street, and she saw me all the time, and that if we ever moved far away, she'd put up pictures of me. Okay, makes sense, I guess. Their small house in town became the hub of Sunday Fedoruk family gatherings. For my mom's side, we still had to drive out to the farm, but for my dad's side, just down the block. As you know, Dad's side was a lot louder. At family gatherings, the booze flowed and the card games were hyperactive. In previous episodes, I've referred to the game of choice, Kaiser, like a poor man's bridge. 4 people play 2 sets of partners. You bid based on the tricks you can take. You only use 32 cards, 8 to the ace of each suit, 5 of hearts, that's worth 5 extra points, and the 3 of spades, -3 points. Stay away from the 3 of spades. The bitch, as they called it. Nice. To make up an even 32, you also use the 7 of clubs and the 7 of diamonds. Sorry, I know that's too much information, but this was a Saskatchewan game. And in every household in Saskatchewan, where they played cards, which was most of them at the time, there was what was called a Kaiser deck, a deck of cards with 32 worn and used playing cards and 20 in pristine condition. You could not use the full deck for anything else, because it was obvious which cards were which. Therefore, often a second deck existed, not to be used for Kaiser, unless it was a Kaiser emergency, but for other games that required the use of all 52 cards without obvious markings on them. That was often called the cribbage deck. Cribbage was the first card game I learned. Well, maybe outside of War. Remember War? A mindless game if ever there was one. Passed way too many hours playing that game. I remember my idiot friend Philip couldn't get it. I had to explain how to play each time. Eventually, I just started changing the rules so I could win. No, 1 is the low card. No, black beats red, so your king loses to my 4 of clubs. I remember one time as an adult, I saw a war table at a casino. And I was like, wow, how desperate are people to just give their money away? I didn't play. Ridiculous game. Plus the dealer looked a little like Philip. Probably wasn't, but there was a resemblance. Might have been. By 8, I knew cribbage. 15-2, 15-4, 15-6, 3 or 9, jacks 10. If you know the game, you can probably guess with fair accuracy what my hand was. If not, I sounded like Rain Man, reciting off a series of numbers that make sense to only me. Again, without over-explaining, in cribbage, each player is dealt a hand of 4 cards. That hand is worth points for a number of reasons, but you also play the hand out one at a time against the other for additional points. You keep score on a cribbage board. It has a series of holes, and you use pegs to mark your progress. Necessary because the score is constantly changing. I mean, you can do it with pencil and paper, but it's ridiculous. You need a cribbage board, which is key to this story, by the way. Cribbage is also best played with 2 people, head-to-head, person-to-person, Johnny's kid to Metro. A little cribbage trivia for you because you need to know. Cribbage boards often come in the shape of the number 29. That's the most points you can get in a single hand, sometimes called the perfect score, 29. 19 is impossible to score in a cribbage hand and is often used to express a hand worth nothing, 0. How much did you get? 19. Expletive. I don't know that Mom particularly liked that I was spending all this time at Mama and Tatu's playing cards at age 8, but at least she knew where I was, and I was bonding. Again, back to the nurturing. If I was over there, they didn't play kids' games with me or read me stories. If I was hanging around, I might as well be of some use. Amuse your grandfather. Play a game he likes. Play cribbage. I remember Metro had an old kitchen chair he would place on the small stoop outside by the side door. That's where we played. Our card table was a large tree stump, and my chair was a smaller tree stump. Tatu brought the cribbage deck, the cribbage board, his smokes, and a small glass of something to take the chill off. But it's summertime and 90 degrees. Shut up and deal. It should be noted that in almost every cribbage board in Saskatchewan, the pegs eventually got lost or broken. For pegs, we would use almost anything else. Mom had some plastic hairpins that worked if you snipped them in half. Where are all my hairpins? I don't know. Often we used wooden matches snapped in 2. Metro would sometimes use the match/game peg to pick his teeth before returning it to the game in progress. We spent hours playing cribbage. I got pretty good pretty fast, even if I do say so myself. I could beat all of my cousins regularly, even the older ones. Occasionally, I could even beat Johnny, the dad. But I could never beat Metro. Not a once. Never won a game. At this point, I have to fast forward about 6 or 7 years. A lazy summer afternoon, and I'm playing cribbage with my older cousin. We were pretty evenly matched normally, but that afternoon he was kicking my cribbage butt. Felt like the old Metro days. He was even picking his teeth with the matchstick peg just like our grandfather used to do, and the same stupid grin on his face. Finally I said, "That's it, no more. I can't win a game today. I'm done." He laughed and said, "That's 'cause I've been cheating the whole time. I was just waiting for you to notice, and you didn't." "Cheating? How?" "So in cribbage, you have 2 pegs, a front peg, which indicates your current score, and a back peg. So when you get, say, 7 points, you take the back peg and move it 7 holes ahead, and now it's your front peg. And when you get 2 more points, you take the back. Well, you get what I'm saying." So my cousin explained that during the hands, he'd take out the back peg, matchstick, pick his teeth with it during the hand, but instead of putting it back, he'd put it 5 or 6 points ahead. What's more, he said, he learned that trick from Grandpa. Metro did it all the time. That's why I never won a game. He cheated. Why would a grown man feel the need to cheat at cribbage just to consistently beat an 8-year-old? His grandson, no less. "Hey, it's me, Johnny's kid. What are you doing?" Somewhat surprisingly, it never really bothered me. I think Dad's side of the family was from the school of thought that says, if you're not cheating, you're not really trying. I think Metro just liked screwing with me, waiting to see if I was smart enough to catch him. I wasn't. Apparently, he did it with all the grandkids, and most of them caught on and called him on it. Not me. Oh well, it would have been nice to win a game occasionally. In reality, I probably did, but those were good times. Bonding, aka cribbage. I don't remember him telling me great stories or sharing history of any kind during those games. Maybe he did, and I was 8 and not interested. I think while playing cribbage, we mostly talked about cribbage. A few years later, Metro passed suddenly, and on the day of his funeral, the family gathered at my grandparents' house down the block. We were the first there, being the closest. But slowly the other brothers and sisters and cousins filtered in from their various towns and cities, including PA, Prince Albert. Somebody poured a few shots of rye. Somebody else brought out the Kaiser deck. And soon it felt just like another Sunday gathering, just no Metro. Metro, Mike, also had a son, Mike, my dad's brother, obviously, who was called Mikey, Uncle Mikey. Where was Mikey? Why isn't Mikey here yet? He lived in PA, and the others from PA were here. Where's Mikey? Not like Mikey to be late. At the top of the hour, Mama, my grandmother, who was busy cooking and making coffee for everyone, hushed the room and turned up the radio to hear the news, as was her habit.
Government officials insist that this is an isolated incident.
Our lead story: police in Prince Albert have busted a large illegal gaming house in the city and arrested the proprietor, Mike Fedoric. Also charged is his spouse. The poker den was raided by police late last night.
Ah, so that was where Mikey was. In jail. This was news for everyone. Within minutes, though, Mikey's car pulled up to the house. He and his wife only spent a few hours in the can, and eventually Mikey just got a small fine and a slap on the wrist, as they say, because, as the Fedoric legend has it, the judge on the case was one of Mikey's biggest clients. Mikey made the funeral. Metro and his wife Helen, Mama and Tatu, carved a life out of the ruthless prairie when it was very tough to do so. They farmed the land. They had 11 kids, countless grandkids. So I feel bad that my main memories of this man were that he cheated at cribbage and that one of his sons almost didn't make the final service due to a police matter. Is that bad? Maybe it's good. It's a much better story this way. I don't know. All in the way you look at it, I guess. Tomato, tomato.
I Was 8 is a weekly series written, produced, and voiced by Larry Fedoruk. A new episode every Thursday. Share your stories with Larry, or if you like, share Larry's stories with a friend. This podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Larry Fedoruk, that's Fedoruk, can be reached at larryfedoruk37@gmail.com.